Hello, and welcome to another AOPEN Tech Flash. My name is Miles Schofield. Today we're talking about what is Chrome OS Flex. So why are we talking about Chrome OS Flex? The main reason is because AOPEN is the leader in enterprise IoT Chrome solution. What that basically means is, of course, we're owned by Acer. They make, they're a leader in, of course, Chromebooks and other sorts of consumer applications such as that. But what we really focus on here at AOPEN is really IoT solutions. So we're talking signage, kiosk, point of sale, all these sort of things. So we make basically Chrome boxes that are fanless, ruggedized, better temp specs, better MTBF, all that sort of stuff, so they can be used in these sort of commercial environment. So why are we talking about Chrome OS Flex? Obviously, there's a lot of buzz about it this year, and I just wanted to explain it in plain language, right? And whenever you get a new tech out there, people just throw all the buzzwords together: sustainable, modernized, eco-friendly, carbon neutral, free range, whatever. I just wanted to get to the bottom of it and talk about exactly how it's used, why it's useful, and why it may be worth checking out depending on your situation. Of course, we're going to cover just briefly the consumer type of solutions. AOPEN is a commercial type company, so I'm just going to briefly talk about that in addition to talking about the enterprise solutions as well. Let's get started. So first thing, of course, Chrome OS Flex just has that tagline Flex on Chrome OS. However, it's a completely different, separate OS. Why did Google need another OS with the same icon as two other products, one of which is a browser, right? That's the first thing you gotta ask yourself. So Chrome OS Flex, number one, it's a completely separate OS. You install it separately, just like you'd install Windows or Linux onto a device. However, it is basically immediately directed towards the enterprise market, which of course the Chrome name is extremely well known. Chrome itself is obviously one of the most powerful brands Google has. It's, you know, one of the most recognizable icons, and from a consumer standpoint, right? So I think what they did here was they just sort of, since one of the main things about Chrome OS Flex is that it can be managed by the same Chrome Enterprise dashboard, it is based off of the Chrome OS operating system itself, that they figured they just keep it under that same brand name because it's sort of targeting similar type of use cases and similar type of technologies, right? Let's talk about where it came from and sort of the primary features, right? So Chrome OS, if you don't know, is sort of based off of this tree that gets created. So the public Linux distro is an open source distribution of Linux, and that gets turned into a distribution called Chromium, which is again open source. And then Chromium open source project gets made into Chrome OS as we see it in the education market. Now, originally there was a company called Neverware who created a product, and their whole idea was, well, can't we get Chrome OS to just run on any hardware? And that's sort of what they set out to do. They did it in their own way. And so they ended up creating that product. They've been around for years and years and years. And its whole purpose was to try and scoop up the last sort of part of the education market. So for schools that didn't have the money to blow on new Chromebooks and things like that, had a whole bunch of regular Windows laptops sitting around, this was a great option. And Google recognized that. So that's why they bought Neverware, is just sort of once Neverware showed that they could sort of make this technology feasible and it was attractive, then sure, Google bought them. Then effectively they recoded and renamed Neverware to Chrome OS Flex, right? However, it is a much different technology. After Google bought them, the one thing that the Google team always made clear to me is that they had to basically program it from the ground up, and they say it's, quote, based off of Chrome OS. So I'm not sure if it's actually a derivative or sort of like a sister or whatever. Probably get that information sometime this year. So Chrome OS dominates the education use space through this cloud management, MDM service, whatever you want to call it, endpoint management system, Chrome Enterprise, right? Chrome Enterprise is basically a cloud dashboard that allows you to push settings to a massive amount of devices, right? So if you have 20,000 Chromebooks at your school and you want to say, okay, you can install these applications or basically push applications to devices, you can do that through the Chrome Enterprise console. Extremely, extremely powerful, affordable. And it's what caused Chrome OS to dominate education so hard, is because this tool makes it relatively easy to manage just tens of thousands of devices when traditionally you would need a much, much more expensive solution to do that, right? So what was Neverware really bringing to the market? So Neverware is a separate company, a separate product, and their whole idea was to try and create a product just, hey, can you install Chrome OS on any other hardware, right? Because Chrome OS can only be installed on Chrome hardware, right? That's certified, stamped by Google, all this sort of stuff, right? So Neverware was basically like, well, let's try and make a Chrome OS version that basically can run on any hardware you have sitting around, right? And the whole initial idea was to sell it towards schools who didn't want to buy new Chromebooks because they already had a whole bunch of Windows laptops sitting around, and just say, hey, you don't need to trash your Windows laptops, you can just install Chrome on it. Great idea. So good, in fact, and so successful that Google decided to purchase them, right? So they control the technology. Now that they know it works, basically their initial push was exactly on that tone, right? Towards the education market. Google's first thing that they said in Q1 about Chrome OS Flex during the release was, hey, you can turn your OS aging laptop into feels like a brand new computer. Obviously, we know Chrome OS is an extremely light OS. Runs on basically anything, and it will turn, if it works, it will turn older hardware into at least a pleasant browsing experience, right? You've all used a web browser on a Chromebook before, so you should pretty much have the same expectations, right? So that's how Google's initial marketing push and the initial release was basically formulated, and why they came to acquire Neverware and rename it to Chrome OS Flex. Let's talk about the enterprise use case and where AOPEN's been with a lot of its partners in the past, 6-7 years. So when it comes to enterprise use cases in Chrome OS, there's a few sort of things people always talk about. The first is support, right? So when you're installing an enterprise solution like a kiosk or meeting room management or just a meeting room booking, any of this stuff, right? You're probably not going to swap it out constantly at the same rate you would buy kids Chromebooks, right? So you're looking at a pretty long support schedule. That's why you want AOPEN hardware, because it lasts an extremely long time, because these things just are ridiculously expensive to install and maintain. And so you really want to make it count when you spend money on sort of IoT or sort of fixed structure sort of solutions, right? And the main thing that always comes up when you talk to channel partners and you're selling solutions in the space, of course, that AUE. So AUE stands for Auto Update Expiration, right? It's Google's way of saying, hey, after 5-6 years from the release of the Intel chipset, we're going to stop releasing updates. Now, why is that a problem? Well, with Windows, they have long-term support schedules, and stuff's not going to change. And if there's ever a security fallout, you can always just push the patch out there, all that sort of stuff. It gives you that sort of peace of mind. So this 5 or 6 was sort of a little bit of a sticking point. The second sort of sticking point is, of course, Chrome OS is tied to proprietary Google Chrome hardware, right? The AOPEN devices are designed in a partnership with Google. They're branded Chrome. They can only run Chrome OS. And when you're making decisions for your solution and your enterprise rollout, most companies sort of just want generic hardware, right? They don't want proprietary things in there because proprietary things require proprietary support and proprietary resources and proprietary knowledge, right? So all that costs more money than just having a whole bunch of Intel processors all over the place running Windows, right? Everyone knows Windows. Everyone knows how to support it. Tons of resources, right? So why are you installing this niche thing that you have to hire a special guy, right? Let's talk about how Chrome Flex sort of solves these issues. Number one is their main claim to fame is this new AUE of 10 years from the point of certification, right? So presumably you put in a project on Chrome OS Flex on a certified device, and you can get support from Chrome OS Flex team for 10 years. So how does Google actually manage this, right? So the main thing you got to know about Chrome OS and its support structure and things like that is, as I mentioned, the proprietary hardware cannot be changed. That's why Google can basically say, we'll definitely support this product for 5 to 6 years with the AUE, right? The reason why it gets a little bit hairy with original Chrome OS is because basically every single build of Chrome OS goes along with the proprietary hardware. So there's a separate OS version technically for every single Chromebook, Chromebase, Chromebox that you can think of out there, which sort of makes nightmare support, right? However, there's only one version of Chrome OS Flex, which supposedly supports all hardware, right? So how does that actually work? If Chrome OS was tailored exactly to every single specific hardware, Chrome OS Flex is basically just a more generic, wide swath of drivers available. And so you can just install it on extremely generic hardware, and it should work. However, it's not guaranteed to work. So how does the actual guarantee work, this 10 years AUE? One of the things that they said on their consumer side was, of course, just try it on anything, right? Just install it on your old Windows laptop, right? But how does that apply when you're working on IoT solutions, right? So the issue becomes fragmentation, right? So say you install a Chrome OS Flex certified device, right? You're using it for signage or kiosks or something. You put the first 100 out there in their first year, and then year number 2, you're using consumer hardware. Of course, they're going to release new hardware every single year with different chipsets and different X, Y, and Z, right? And then the third year, you're going to get version 3.0 of whatever consumer product you chose. And by the end, you have your 30,000 kiosks deployed, and a third of them are on this thing, and a third of them are on this and that and this, the other. And it sort of becomes a device cycle sort of support. All of them would be technically certified in a different way from Chrome OS Flex, but consumer hardware manufacturers don't really guarantee any stability in terms of the chips or the drivers that they use, even for the same product, right? So The main way that AOPEN addresses this issue, especially when it comes to Chrome OS Flex certification, is that our products, even our Windows and our Linux products, which are going to be certified to support Chrome OS Flex, very long cycle, 3 to 4 years instead of just every year, which means that if you buy one of our products, you pretty much know that it's going to be the same for 3-4 years. You don't get in this fragmentation issue, and you don't run the risk of buying a consumer product which changes over the next year as the new version gets released, because they just run out of chips or whatever, and then suddenly Chrome OS Flex doesn't work, right? Let's say you're buying one version of a device and they switch out the Wi-Fi card, and then Chrome OS Flex doesn't support the new Wi-Fi card and can't do anything, right? This is obviously one of the key things to consider when it comes to Chrome OS Flex. So let's finish off the conversation with MDM, or Endpoint Management. As I said, this is one of the key technologies involved in the Chrome OS ecosystem. And as I mentioned before, Chrome enterprise companies, they don't want proprietary stuff all over the place, right? And so this new platform, the Chrome OS Flex, under that same MDM umbrella, right, makes it a real attractive general option. I mean, just think about this. You want to install an Intel-based IoT device. What are your options for first-party MDM or endpoint management systems? Not a whole lot, right? The new technology, effectively being able to install this and make it pretty hardware agnostic, makes it a pretty good generic choice for an MDM solution. For those of you who don't know what an MDM solution is, if you have a solution, let's say it's a web page that does signage, right? Or you're an IT manager and you're trying to deploy 10,000 company phones, right? Well, you want to know how to control what apps go on those phones, how to do the browsing, how to isolate certain applications for enterprise use, and blah, blah, blah. And for all that stuff, you need endpoint management systems. So it's a way to control all the settings, the user settings on basically mobile or IoT devices, right? This new platform, attractive general choice that anyone could basically consider for a lot of different deployments, right? Now, the reason why this market is so fragmented is because a lot of these companies that make MDM systems obviously want to focus on the very expensive use case of managing cell phones, because that's where the money is, right? Lots of people have corporate cell phones and they need to be managed, right? So you can charge a lot of people and a lot of money for that. But if you're installing 20,000 kiosks, all you really need is for it to run one thing. And so you don't want 50,000 settings. And so that's why Google came in with another great feature, which is that $25 a year license, which they just recently released. That makes it really, really, I mean, you're getting a first party endpoint management system for $25 a year. So once again, it's going to be a very attractive option in this space. So I hope you learned something about Chrome OS Flex today. Thanks for joining. I'll see you next time. Have a good day.